A federal judge in Washington state has partially lifted a Trump administration travel ban that limits entry into the U.S. by refugees from several Muslim-majority countries. That decision follows an explosive report by the New York Times that alleges Trump made derogatory and racist comments about immigrants while reviewing a memo on visas granted by the U.S. State Department back in June. The White House has strongly denied the report in which Trump is alleged to have said Haitians granted entry into the U.S., quote, all have AIDS, and that Nigerian immigrants would not want to go back to their huts. Now, for more on this story and the year of Trump in 2017, we're joined by Brian Calfano. He is a professor of political science and journalism at the University of Cincinnati. He joins me now from Princeton, New Jersey. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us. So much to talk about when we talk about Trump 2017, but I want to start with this New York Times article. It's making a lot of waves. What do you make of the language that President Trump reportedly used to describe immigrants, and what kind of impact do you think this report will have?
Well, good evening to you. If he said those words, particularly the ones about AIDS and huts and that sort of thing, I mean, that's really just very demoralizing to have the president of the United States use that kind of language. But I don't know that we should be naive enough to think that presidents behind closed doors talking to their most trusted advisors have never used unsavory language and said things that they wouldn't want published. And of course, the White House at this point is denying that those words were used. But if you go through the New York Times article, you'll see that there's not much denial in terms of the overall gist of the conversation. The president being very upset that he could not get the bureaucracy to comply initially when he was trying to get the travel ban imposed and when he was trying to make sure that his immigration policies would come to fruition. So I think overall, this is what you should expect from a president who has no political experience and who is really dealing with a steep learning curve. His administration is starting now to get the hang of things, but I wouldn't be surprised to see more leaks coming out of major media outlets about some salty language the president's used and will continue to use while he's in the White House. But in terms of the impact, your second question, I think you look at Trump and he's appealing to two different audiences here. One, the American people, the folks who put him in office and also pay to keep him in office. These are people who are supporting the federal government through their taxes. He has an obligation to try to act more presidential, more mature, if you will. But the president also has a second audience there, which is simply the folks who support him on a regular basis, put him in office, and will continue to support the Republican Party and the Trump agenda. And he's, I'm sure, getting a lot of folks saying, yeah, right on, President Trump or Donald or whatever they want to call him. These are exactly the same thoughts we've had all this time. And now someone's finally saying what we've been thinking in the White House.
But, you know, in terms of his supporters, one of his big policy planks promises was immigration reform. But it seems his travel ban has taken yet another hit. Just this weekend, a federal judge blocking parts of the ban. So there have been a number of challenges, appeals since this ban came into place. So what does this latest court order mean for that policy?
It means that I think you're looking at a president who is going to continue to be frustrated by the fact that he just can't issue edicts and have them implemented as he would. I mean, he didn't really count during the campaign season, apparently, on the fact that we have a robust court system in this country that will, in fact, try to apply the law as they understand it and apply the Constitution as they understand it. I think if you're going forward, the president's going to have to figure out a legal strategy to convince enough folks on the federal bench that they're going to be complying with the law as the administration by not applying a travel ban across the board to these Muslim countries. If they can find a way to thread that needle, I think it'll work. But unfortunately for the Trump administration, they're on record as making all kinds of claims about not wanting Muslims to enter the country. And any judge looking at this is simply going to say this is effectively a religious-based ban, and that's unconstitutional.
We don't have much time, but I want to touch on one of the other big top stories, and that's the ongoing feud between President Trump and the media, who he dubs fake news. So help us understand this relationship. It seems nearly every negative report is dubbed as by Trump as fake news.
It is. And what happens here is you have the boy who cried wolf. When the president wants to get some message out and he has something he wants to say and it's credible in his mind, it's fine. It's news that should be reported. When something is not popular and the president doesn't like it, then it's fake news. But look, I think there's a mutually beneficial relationship going on here. The president loves to beat up on the media. It's a political strategy presidents have used for a long time. It usually increases their numbers with their supporters. Meanwhile, media ends up being able to claim the president's engaging with them and picking on them, which also increases ratings. So if you look at it from a symbiotic standpoint, there's actual mutual benefits going on with both sides there. And I think that's why you see this relationship continue.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for now. Brian, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.